This video is going to blow up your brain. Everything you're doing right now. I need exactly 5 minutes of your complete attention because I'm about to prove something impossible. I'm going to prove that you don't exist. And here's the terrifying part. You won't be able to argue with me. Look at your hands right now. Really look at them. Those hands you're seeing? They're not the same hands you had 10 years ago. Not a single cell in those hands is the same. In fact, every cell in your entire body has been replaced at least once in the last decade. Your skin cells, gone and replaced every few weeks. Your bones, they rebuild themselves completely every 7 years. Even the cells in your brain, the very neurons that hold your memories, they've been swapped out piece by piece. So here's my question, and I want you to really think about this. If every single part of you has been replaced, are you still you? This isn't just philosophy. This is a real paradox that has a name. The ancient Greeks called it the ship of Theseus. Imagine a wooden ship that sails for decades. Every time a plank rots, the crew replaces it with a new one. Eventually, after enough time passes, every single plank has been replaced. Is it still the same ship? Now apply that to yourself. The person who started watching this video 60 seconds ago had different cells than you do right now. Your body is constantly dying and rebuilding. So who are you? Are you the collection of atoms? Those atoms are different now. Are you the pattern those atoms make? But patterns change too. Are you your memories? But memories are stored in cells that have been replaced. Here's where it gets mind-bending. If you're not the same person you were 10 years ago, then who are you? And if you can't answer that question, do you really exist at all? Or are you just a story that keeps telling itself? By the end of this video, all 2.5 hours of it, your brain is going to hurt. But it's going to hurt in the best way possible, like a mental workout that leaves you stronger. Because you're not just going to understand this paradox. You're going to understand why the smartest people in human history, Aristotle, Bertrand Russell, Kurt Gödel, couldn't solve these puzzles. And more importantly, you are going to understand why that's beautiful. Chapter 2. What makes something a paradox? Before we dive deeper, we need to understand what we're actually fighting against. Because a paradox isn't just something confusing. It's something far more dangerous to your brain. Picture this scene. Ancient Greece, around 400 BC. The marketplace in Athens is packed with people buying food, arguing about politics, living their normal lives. Then a philosopher walks into the center of the square. The crowd goes quiet because they know this guy. He's one of those thinkers who asks the weird questions. He raises his hand, and in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, he declares, "Everything I say is a lie." The crowd freezes, because they just realize something their brains can't process. If everything he says is a lie, then that statement itself must be a lie, which means some things he says are true, which means the statement can't be a lie, which means, you see the problem? Their brains just got stuck in a loop with no way out. That is a paradox. But here's what makes it different from just a confusing riddle. A paradox isn't confusing because you lack information. It's not like a mystery where you just need one more clue. A paradox is a statement or situation that is simultaneously true and false. It's logically valid but leads to a logically impossible conclusion. Your brain knows both options can't be right, but it also can't prove either option wrong. Let me give you the simplest example, and I want you to really feel your brain trying to process this. This sentence is false. Just those 4 words. Read them again. This sentence is false. Okay, so if that sentence is true, then it's telling the truth about being false, which means it's false. But if it's false, then it's lying about being false, which means it's actually true. True means false. False means true. Round and round forever. This is not just wordplay. This is not me being clever with language. This reveals something fundamental about how logic itself works, or more accurately, how logic breaks. Because here's the key insight that separates paradoxes from just confusing things. A paradox is impossible but also logical at the exact same time. Both conclusions make perfect sense individually, but they can't both be true together. Think of it like this. Your brain is like a computer program that runs on logic. Input information, process it through rules, produce an answer. But when you feed your brain a paradox, it's like asking a computer to divide by 0. The computer doesn't say, "I don't know." It doesn't say, "That's hard." It crashes. The system encounters an operation that breaks its fundamental rules. And here's what makes paradoxes addictive. You can feel your brain trying to solve them. You can sense you're so close to the answer. It's right there, just barely out of reach. And that feeling, that sensation of almost grasping something impossible, that's what this entire video is about. But why does this break our brains so completely? Why can't we just shrug and say weird and move on? That's what we're about to discover. And trust me, the answer involves brain chemistry, evolutionary biology, and the fundamental limits of human consciousness. Chapter 3. Your brain on paradox. Your brain is doing something right now that it does with nothing else. And if we could scan your brain at this exact moment, we'd see something shocking. Imagine for a moment that we could take an MRI scan of your brain while you're thinking about that "this sentence is false" paradox. What we'd see would be extraordinary. Multiple regions of your brain would light up simultaneously, areas that normally don't activate together. Your logic centers would be firing. Your language processing areas would be scrambling. Your emotional centers would show activity. Even your visual cortex would engage, trying to create some kind of mental image of the problem. Your brain doesn't do this with normal problems. When you solve a math equation, specific logic regions activate. When you read a story, language centers take over. But with a paradox, it's like your brain is throwing everything it has at the problem, like a computer allocating all its processing power to one impossible task. And here's what's fascinating. That moment when you first encounter a paradox, there's a rush, not of confusion, but of excitement. Scientists have measured this. When people engage with paradoxes, their brains release dopamine. the same chemical that fires when you're about to solve a puzzle, win a game, or discover something new. Your brain is literally rewarding you for engaging with something impossible. But why? Why would your brain give you a reward for something it can't solve? The answer lies in how your brain evolved. For millions of years, human survival depended on pattern recognition and logical thinking. See footprints? Predict where the animal went? See dark clouds? Expect rain? Cause leads to effect. Pattern leads to prediction. Our ancestors who were best at this survived and had children. Your brain is essentially a prediction machine. It takes information from the world and tries to predict what happens next. It loves finding patterns because patterns mean safety, food, survival. So when your brain encounters a paradox, a pattern that seems like it should make sense but doesn't, it goes into overdrive. It's like, wait, this is important. This is a pattern I need to understand. Let me throw more resources at it. The problem is, paradoxes resist solution. They're like puzzles that fight back. Every time you think you've solved it, the solution reveals another problem. It's a loop with no exit. And this creates a unique psychological state. You're frustrated because you can't solve it, but you're also fascinated because you're so close. That tension between frustration and fascination, that's what makes paradoxes addictive. Compare this to what happens when a computer encounters dividing by zero. The computer doesn't get frustrated or fascinated, it just stops. Error. Crash. Cannot compute. But your brain doesn't crash. Instead, it keeps running, trying different approaches, coming at the problem from new angles, refusing to give up. This persistence is actually a feature, not a bug. In nature, persistence solves problems. But with paradoxes, persistence just deepens the mystery. And here's the really beautiful part. Even though you can't solve a paradox, engaging with it makes you smarter. Every time your brain struggles with impossible logic, it's forming new neural connections. It's learning the limits of logical thinking. It's developing cognitive flexibility, the ability to hold two contradictory ideas in your mind at once. F. Scott Fitzgerald once said, "The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function." Paradoxes train you to do exactly that. They're like push-ups for your mind, strengthening your ability to think in complex, multi-layered ways. But not all paradoxes are created equal. Some are just linguistic tricks. Others have destroyed entire fields of study, brought civilizations to their knees, and changed the course of human history. And the first of these world-changing paradoxes was created by a Greek philosopher who wanted to prove that nothing moves. Yes, you heard that right. Nothing moves. Not your hand, not cars, not even light. And he nearly convinced everyone he was right. Chapter 4. The First Mind Bender in History. Let me take you back 2,500 years to a moment when one man almost broke mathematics forever. And it started with the simple question: can you move? The year is 450 BC. The place is Elea, a Greek colony in southern Italy, and there's a philosopher named Zeno who has a crazy teacher. His teacher, Parmenides, believes something that seems obviously wrong, that change is impossible, that movement doesn't exist, that everything you think you see moving is just an illusion. Now imagine being Zeno. Everyone laughs at your teacher. Movement doesn't exist. I'm literally walking right now, they say. I'm moving my arm. How can you say movement is impossible? And Parmenides can't really prove his point. It's just his belief. So Zeno decides to defend his teacher using the only weapon he has, logic. He thinks, if movement exists, then I should be able to logically prove it exists. And if I can show that movement leads to logical contradictions, then maybe, just maybe, movement really is impossible. What Zeno creates next is so powerful that mathematicians will argue about it for 2,000 years. It will puzzle Aristotle. It will confuse medieval scholars. It won't be fully solved until the invention of calculus in the 1600s. And even today, philosophers still debate whether we truly understood it or just found a way to work around it. Zeno creates several paradoxes, but one stands above all the others. It's so elegant, so simple, and yet so devastating that it nearly broke mathematics before mathematics was even fully formed. And it starts with a story that everyone in ancient Greece would know immediately. The story of Achilles, the greatest warrior who ever lived, the fastest runner in all of Greece, the hero of the Trojan War. Zeno says, let's imagine Achilles races a tortoise, just a simple race. The crowd probably laughed. Achilles race a tortoise? That's not even a competition. But Zeno continues, let's make it fair. We'll give the tortoise a head start. Say 100 meters. People are nodding. Okay, fine. Even with a head start, Achilles wins easily, right? He's the fastest human alive. The tortoise is, well, a tortoise. Then Zeno drops the bomb. He says, using perfect logic, I can prove that Achilles will never catch the tortoise, not ever, not in 1,000,000 years, not in eternity. And the crazy thing, his argument makes perfect sense. Every step of it is logically valid. There's no flaw you can point to. Yet the conclusion is obviously impossible. And that paradox, that tension between perfect logic and impossible conclusion, that's what we're going to explore next. Because understanding this paradox is the key to understanding why paradoxes blow our minds. Get ready. What you're about to hear will make you question whether you understand anything about reality. Chapter 5. Achilles and the Tortoise. Achilles is about to race a tortoise, and using flawless logic, I'm going to prove he loses every single time. Picture the scene in vivid detail. The greatest warrior in Greek mythology stands at a starting line. Achilles, the man who can run faster than any human alive, who fought in the greatest war in history, who is basically superhuman. And 100 meters ahead of him sits a tortoise, not even trying, just existing. The race begins. Achilles explodes forward. His muscles are perfect. His speed is devastating. He covers that 100 meters in seconds. But here's where Zeno's logic begins, and I want you to really follow each step, because every step makes perfect sense. When Achilles reaches the spot where the tortoise started, that 100-meter mark, Where is the tortoise now? Well, it's moved. Not far. Maybe just 10 meters. But it's moved forward. So Achilles hasn't caught it yet. Okay, no problem. Achilles keeps running. He covers those 10 meters in less than a second. He reaches the spot where the tortoise was. But again, where is the tortoise now? It's moved again. Maybe just 1 meter this time. But it's still ahead. Achilles covers that meter, reaches the spot. Tortoise has moved. Achilles covers that distance. Tortoise has moved. Achilles covers that distance. Tortoise has moved. Here's Zeno's killer logic. This happens infinitely. No matter how fast Achilles runs, every time he reaches where the tortoise was, the tortoise has moved forward some amount. Maybe a tiny amount. Maybe a microscopically small amount. But some amount. And this means there are infinite steps Achilles must complete before catching the tortoise. Now Zeno delivers his devastating conclusion. How can Achilles complete an infinite number of steps in finite time? It's impossible. Therefore, Achilles never catches the tortoise. And the crowd in ancient Greece just stands there with their mouths open, because they can see Achilles catching the tortoise. They know he catches it. They've seen fast people catch slow people their entire lives, but they can't find the flaw in Zeno's argument. Every step is logically valid. This is why paradoxes are so powerful. They take something you know is true, Achilles catches the tortoise, and prove using perfect logic that it's impossible. One of these things must be wrong. Either your observations of reality or the rules of logic itself. But which one? For 2,000 years, this paradox haunted humanity. Aristotle tried to solve it and kind of succeeded, but his solution wasn't satisfying. He basically said, well, an infinite number of small steps can add up to a finite distance. But he couldn't prove it rigorously. He just kind of waved his hands and moved on. Medieval scholars argued about it in monasteries. They connected it to religious questions about the nature of space and time. Some said it proved God must exist to make motion possible. Others said it proved material reality was an illusion. The real solution didn't come until the 1600s, when mathematicians invented calculus. And here's what they discovered. Zeno was actually right about one thing. There are infinite steps. But he was wrong about infinite steps taking infinite time. Here's the key insight that breaks the paradox. Yes, there are infinite steps, but each step takes less time than the previous one. If the first step takes 1 second, the second step might take half a second, the third step a quarter second, the fourth step an eighth of a second, and so on. And here's the magical part. When you add up an infinite series where each term gets smaller fast enough, you get a finite sum. 1 plus 1/2 plus 1/4 plus 1/8 and so on forever equals exactly 2. Not infinity, not something undefined. Exactly 2. This is called a convergent series, and it's one of the most beautiful discoveries in mathematics. So Achilles does catch the tortoise, not by completing infinite steps in infinite time, but by completing infinite steps in finite time, because each step is proportionally shorter. Problem solved, right? But wait. Here's the deeper question that still bothers philosophers today. Was Zeno's paradox truly solved, or did we just find a mathematical framework that works around it? Because here's the thing, we still don't fully understand what infinity really means in physical reality. We can handle it mathematically, but philosophically, the mystery remains. And this brings us to the critical insight about why paradoxes blow our minds. They reveal that our intuition about reality is fundamentally flawed. Your intuition says, of course, fast things catch slow things. Your intuition says, infinity means forever and ever, never ending. But mathematics says your intuition is wrong. Infinity can be completed. The impossible is possible. This was just the beginning. Because Zeno's paradox about motion broke mathematics, but the next paradox we're going to explore nearly destroyed it completely. And it starts with a simple question. Can a barber shave himself? Chapter 6, The Paradox That Almost Destroyed Mathematics. London, 1901. A young philosopher discovers something that will send shock waves through the mathematical world, and it starts with a barber in a village. Imagine spending your entire life building a house. Not just any house, the perfect house. Every nail in exactly the right place, every board measured precisely, every room designed with flawless logic. Now imagine that when you're finally done, someone points to the foundation and says, "That's actually impossible. Your entire house shouldn't exist." That's exactly what happened to mathematics in 1901. For decades, the greatest mathematical minds in the world had been building what they called the foundations of mathematics. They wanted to prove that all of math, every equation, every theorem, every proof, could be derived from a small set of perfect logical rules. It was going to be beautiful, complete, unshakable. Then a 29-year-old British philosopher named Bertrand Russell discovered a tiny flaw. And that tiny flaw was like discovering a crack in a dam. Once you see it, you realize the whole thing is about to collapse. Russell's discovery is mind-bendingly complex when written in mathematical notation. But he created a simpler version to help people understand it, and it goes like this. Imagine a small village. In this village there's exactly one barber. And the barber follows a very specific rule. He shaves all and only those men who do not shave themselves. Seems simple enough, right? If you're a man in the village and you shave yourself, the barber doesn't shave you. If you don't shave yourself, the barber does shave you. Every man in the village fits into one of these two categories. Either he shaves himself, or the barber shaves him. Crystal clear. Now here's the question that breaks everything. Does the barber shave himself? Let's work through this carefully. If the barber shaves himself, then he's a man who shaves himself, which means, according to the rule, the barber should not shave him. But he is the barber. So this creates a contradiction. Okay, so maybe he doesn't shave himself. If the barber doesn't shave himself, then he's a man who doesn't shave himself, which means, according to the rule, the barber must shave him. But again, he is the barber, so he must shave himself, which contradicts our assumption that he doesn't. He shaves himself, contradiction. He doesn't shave himself, Contradiction. There is no way out. The situation is logically impossible. Now, you might think, well, that's just a silly word game. Just don't have that rule. But here's the devastating part. This same logical structure was hidden in the foundations of mathematics. The mathematical version is called Russell's paradox, and it deals with something called the set of all sets that don't contain themselves. A set is just a collection of things. The set of all even numbers, the set of all red things. Simple. Most sets don't contain themselves. The set of all even numbers is not itself an even number. But some sets do contain themselves. The set of all sets is itself a set. Russell asked, what about the set of all sets that don't contain themselves? Does that set contain itself? If it contains itself, then it's a set that contains itself, which means it shouldn't be in the set of sets that don't contain themselves. If it doesn't contain itself, then it's a set that doesn't contain itself, which means it should be in the set of sets that don't contain themselves. Same paradox, same impossible loop, but this one was in the heart of mathematics. When Russell published this in 1901, the mathematical community went into crisis mode. Gottlob Frege, one of the greatest logicians who ever lived, had just finished a massive work called The Foundations of Arithmetic. It was his life's work. He was about to publish the final volume when he received Russell's letter explaining the paradox. Frege added a note to his book that basically said, "A scientist can hardly encounter anything more undesirable than having the foundation collapse just as the work is finished. I was placed in this position by a letter from Mr. Bertrand Russell. Can you imagine your life's work destroyed by a simple logical paradox? That's the power of paradoxes. They don't just confuse you. They can obliterate entire frameworks of understanding. This led to what's called the foundational crisis in mathematics. Mathematicians scrambled to rebuild the foundations using new logical systems that couldn't produce this paradox. They eventually succeeded, but they had to make compromises. They had to add rules that felt arbitrary. You can't have a set of all sets became a fundamental rule, not because it was obviously true, but because allowing it created paradoxes. Here's the profound lesson. Mathematics, which we think of as the most certain form of knowledge, had to be rebuilt to avoid paradoxes. And the new version isn't necessarily more true. It's just a version that works without contradicting itself. We chose our logical rules to avoid paradoxes, not because those rules are somehow written into the fabric of reality. This should be humbling. If even mathematics, pure, abstract, logical mathematics, can be threatened by paradoxes, what does that say about our other beliefs? Our certainty about reality? Our confidence in our own reasoning, but we're just getting started. Because the next set of paradoxes doesn't just break mathematics, they break our understanding of infinity itself. Chapter 7. Infinity Paradoxes that Break Reality. I'm going to show you a hotel with infinite rooms. They're all full, and yet I can fit infinite more guests. Welcome to the Infinite Hotel. Your brain handles most numbers pretty well. 100. Easy. 1 million. You can kind of imagine it. 1 billion. Getting harder, but okay. But infinity? Infinity isn't just a really big number. It's something that breaks every rule about numbers you've ever learned. And I'm going to prove it with a hotel. German mathematician David Hilbert proposed this thought experiment, and it's called Hilbert's Hotel. Imagine a hotel that has infinite rooms. Room 1, room 2, room 3, continuing forever. Not a trillion rooms, not a Google rooms. Infinite rooms. The hallway never ends. The building never stops. Now, every single room is occupied. There's a guest in room 1, a guest in room 2, a guest in every room, extending to infinity. The hotel is completely full. No vacancies. A new guest arrives at the front desk. They want a room. The desk clerk smiles and says, "No problem." And here's where your brain should start hurting. The clerk makes an announcement over the loudspeaker. "Attention, all guests. Please move from your current room to the room number that is 1 higher. Guest in room 1, move to room 2. Guest in room 2, move to room 3. Everyone shift up by 1. This happens. Everyone moves. And suddenly, room 1 is empty. The new guest checks in. The hotel is full again. But here's the impossible part. The hotel was already full. We added a guest, and it's still full. We didn't make the hotel bigger. We just rearranged infinity. But wait. It gets so much weirder. An infinite bus arrives. Yes, a bus with infinite seats, and every seat has a passenger. The bus driver asks, "Can you fit all of us?" And the clerk says, "Absolutely." Another announcement. "Attention all guests. Please move to the room number that is double your current room number. Guest in room 1, move to room 2. Guest in room 2, move to room 4. Guest in room 3, move to room 6. Everyone move to double their room number." This happens, and suddenly all the odd-numbered rooms are empty. Rooms 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, all empty. That's infinitely many empty rooms. The infinite bus passengers check into the odd-numbered rooms. The hotel is full again. Think about what just happened. The hotel was full. We added infinite guests, and it's still full, with exactly the same number of rooms. Infinity plus infinity equals infinity. This is profoundly weird. In normal math, if a container is full and you add more stuff, it either overflows or you need a bigger container. But infinity doesn't work that way. Infinity plus any number equals infinity. Infinity plus infinity equals infinity. Infinity times 2 equals infinity. Here's another mind-bender. There are infinite even numbers. There are infinite ODD numbers. So there are more total numbers than even numbers alone, right? Wrong. There are the same number of even numbers as total numbers. Both are infinite, and one infinity isn't bigger than the other in this case. Actually, that's not quite right either. There are different sizes of infinity, which is somehow even more insane. The infinity of counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, is a smaller infinity than the infinity of decimal numbers, 1.1, 1.01, 1,001. I'm not kidding. Mathematicians have proven this. Some infinities are bigger than others. This breaks our intuition completely. We evolved to count sheep and berries. Our brains understand, I have 3 sheep and you have 5 sheep, so together we have 8 sheep. But our brains did not evolve to handle infinity. Infinity is a concept, not a quantity you can hold or see or experience. Let me show you another infinity paradox that's even more visceral. Imagine you have a chocolate bar. It's got rows and columns like normal chocolate. Now imagine you break off one piece and eat it. Delicious. But here's the thing. This is a magical infinity chocolate bar. After you eat that piece, the remaining pieces rearrange themselves and the bar is whole again. Same size, same shape, as if you never took a piece. You break off another piece, eat it. The bar reconstructs itself. You can do this forever. Infinite chocolate from a finite-sized bar. This is mathematically possible if we allow infinite divisibility. Each piece would be infinitesimally small, but still something. Infinite somethings in a finite space. Or consider the Library of Babel, a concept by writer Jorge Luis Borges. Imagine a library containing every possible book. Every combination of letters in every order, in books of a certain length. This library would contain the actual history of World War II, written perfectly. It would also contain 1,000,000 false histories of World War II. It would contain the cure for cancer. It would contain 1,000,000 fake cures. It would contain this exact script I'm reading right now. It would contain everything you will ever say in your life, already written. It would contain 1,000,000 variations of what you could have said instead. The library is infinite, but here's the paradox. It's also useless, because you'd never find the true information among the infinite false information. Every fact would be buried in infinite lies. Infinity creates information, but infinity also destroys meaning. This is why infinity paradoxes blow our minds. They reveal that bigger isn't always bigger, more isn't always more. And the rules we use for finite things, rules that work perfectly in normal life, completely fall apart when we try to apply them to the infinite. But here's the question philosophers still debate. Does infinity exist in physical reality, or is it just a mathematical concept we invented? Is there actually an infinite amount of space in the universe, or does space eventually end somewhere? Are there infinite decimal places in physical measurements, or is there a smallest possible unit? These aren't just abstract questions. They cut to the heart of what reality is, and the answer isn't clear. We use infinity in our math. We need it for calculus, for physics, for describing the universe. But we've never observed actual infinity. Everything we can measure is finite. So maybe infinity is the ultimate paradox, a concept we must use to describe reality, but which may not actually exist in reality. We'll come back to this idea later. But first, we need to talk about paradoxes that involve time itself. Because if you think space is weird, wait until you see what happens when we add time travel to paradoxes. Chapter 8, The Grandfather Paradox and Time Travel. What if I told you that going back in time isn't just impossible, it's logically impossible? And the reason involves your grandfather. Close your eyes and imagine this scenario with me. Scientists invent a time machine. It works. You step inside, set the dial to 1945 and press the button. There's a flash of light, a twist of space, and suddenly you're standing in the past. Real time travel. You can touch things, you can talk to people. You are physically in the past. You have a mission. Maybe you're trying to prevent a terrible tragedy. Maybe you're curious about history. Maybe you just want to see what it was like. But while you're there, you do something, maybe accidentally, maybe on purpose. You prevent your grandfather from meeting your grandmother. They never fall in love. They never marry. Your parent is never born, which means you are never born, which means you were never born to go back in time in the first place, which means you never prevented them from meeting, which means they did meet, which means you were born, which means you did go back and stop them, which means you weren't born. Round and round forever. This is called the grandfather paradox, and it's the most famous time travel paradox. And here's why it matters. This isn't just science fiction. Physicists actually study this, because according to Einstein's theory of relativity, time travel to the past might be physically possible under certain conditions. Wormholes, rotating black holes, cosmic strings. The math allows it. But the grandfather paradox suggests that even if time travel is physically possible, it might be logically impossible. The laws of physics might permit it, but the laws of logic forbid it. And if logic and physics contradict each other, which one is right? This has led physicists and philosophers to propose several wild solutions. Solution 1. The many worlds interpretation. When you go back in time and change something, you don't actually change your timeline. Instead, you create a new timeline, an alternate universe where your grandparents never met. In your original timeline, you still exist and still went back in time. But in the new timeline you created, you were never born. This solves the paradox, but at the cost of accepting that infinite parallel universes exist and you're constantly branching them every time you time travel. This is basically the Marvel Cinematic Universe solution. When you change the past, you create an alternate timeline. Solution 2. The self-consistency principle. This says that time travel is possible, but you can't change the past. Not because someone stops you, but because events conspire to make it impossible. You go back to kill your grandfather, your gun jams. You try to push him in front of a car, you trip. You try anything. Something always stops you. Not because of magic, but because if you had succeeded, you wouldn't have been born to try it. So those timelines don't exist. Only self-consistent timelines exist. This means the past is fixed, and time travelers were always part of the timeline. You can't change what happened because what happened already includes your failed time travel attempts. Solution 3. Time travel to the past is simply impossible. The laws of physics might seem to allow it, but there's some deeper law we don't understand yet that prevents it. This is the most conservative solution, but it's also the least satisfying because it basically says, don't worry about the paradox. It's not a real problem because time travel doesn't exist. But wait, There's another time travel paradox that's somehow even weirder than the grandfather paradox. It's called the bootstrap paradox, and it involves information that has no origin. Imagine this. You love Shakespeare. You have a complete collection of his works, every play, every sonnet, everything. You get access to a time machine and decide to meet your hero. You travel back to 1590s England, find young William Shakespeare, and discover something shocking. He hasn't written anything yet. He's just a guy. So you think, well, I'll inspire him. You give him your book, The Complete Works of Shakespeare. He reads it, loves it, and starts publishing these plays as his own work. They become famous. Centuries pass. You're born. You read Shakespeare in school. You go back in time with that book. You give it to Shakespeare. Here's the question that should make your brain hurt. Who actually wrote the plays? You didn't write them. You just copied them from a published book. But Shakespeare didn't write them either. He just copied them from the book you gave him. The information came from the future, where it came from the past, where it came from the future, in an endless loop. The information has no origin point. It exists in a causal loop with no beginning. It's not that someone wrote it and we don't know who. It's that no one wrote it. The information just exists, eternally looping through time. This is terrifying for a deeper reason. Causation is fundamental to how we understand reality. Everything has a cause. The Big Bang caused the universe. Your parents caused you. This sentence exists because I'm writing it. Cause and effect. But the bootstrap paradox suggests that information can exist without a cause. It can just be looping through time eternally. And if that's possible, what does it mean for free will? If the future can affect the past, and the past can affect the future, in a loop with no beginning, then in what sense do we actually choose anything? Are we just playing out a script that exists outside of time? These time travel paradoxes reveal something profound. Time itself might be more mysterious than we think. We experience time as a flow, past behind us, future ahead, present happening now. But physics suggests time might not work that way. Einstein showed that time is relative. It moves at different speeds depending on your motion and gravity. Some physicists believe the entire timeline of the universe might exist all at once, and we just experience it moment by moment, like watching a movie frame by frame. If that's true, then the past isn't gone, and the future isn't yet to be. They all exist simultaneously, and we're just moving through them. Which means going back in time might not even be the right way to think about it. But all of this, Zeno, Russell, Hilbert, time travel, this is just preparing you for the deepest category of paradoxes. Because we're about to enter territory where paradoxes don't just break mathematics or physics. They break the concept of truth itself. Chapter 9. The Liar's Paradox. Ultimate Self-Reference. We're returning to where we started. 4 simple words. This sentence is false. But now you're going to understand why these 4 words have haunted humanity for 2,600 years. Let's go back to ancient Greece one more time. The year is around 600 BC. There's a poet and philosopher named Epimenides from the island of Crete, And Epimenides makes a statement that will echo through millennia. He says, all Cretans are liars. At first, people probably just thought he was insulting his own people. But then, someone noticed something strange. Epimenides himself is from Crete. So if all Cretans are liars, then Epimenides is a liar, which means his statement is a lie, which means not all Cretans are liars, which means maybe he's telling the truth. But if he's telling the truth, then all Cretans are liars, including him, which makes his statement a lie. This is the first recorded instance of the liar's paradox in human history. And for 2,600 years, it has refused to go away. The paradox has been refined over centuries into its purest form. This sentence is false. Just those 4 words, and they create an impossible logical situation. Let's trace through it carefully, because I want you to feel your brain hitting the wall. Option 1, the sentence is true. Okay, if it's true, then what it says must be correct. What does it say? It says it's false. So if the sentence is true, then it's false. Option 2, the sentence is false. Okay, if it's false, then what it says must be incorrect. What does it say? It says it's false. So if it's false, then it's not false, which means it's true. True means false. False means true. There is no stable answer. It's not like we just don't know the answer. It's that no answer is possible. The sentence doesn't fit into our categories of true or false. Now, medieval philosophers became obsessed with this paradox. Monks in monasteries would debate it for hours. Why? Because it threatened their entire worldview. Christianity taught that God is all-knowing and all-truthful. But if there exist statements that can be neither true nor false, what does that mean? Is there something God cannot know? Is there a truth beyond truth and falsehood? Some monks actually proposed that the solution was that God could hold contradictions simultaneously, that in God's mind something could be both true and false at the same time. This led to accusations of heresy because it suggested limitations on divine logic. The paradox evolved and mutated through history. Consider this variation. 2 sentences. Sentence A, sentence B is true. Sentence B, sentence A is false. Let's work through it. If sentence A is true, then sentence B is true, because that's what A says. But if sentence B is true, then sentence A is false, because that's what B says. But we started by assuming A is true. Contradiction. If sentence A is false, then sentence B is false, because A claims B is true, and A is wrong. But if sentence B is false, then A is not false, which means A is true. But we started by assuming A is false. Contradiction. Neither option works. The 2 sentences create a logical death spiral that has no escape. Or consider the Pinocchio paradox, which is actually recent. It was only discovered in 2001. Remember Pinocchio? His nose grows when he lies. So what happens if Pinocchio says, "My nose will grow now"? If his nose grows, then he told the truth, which means his nose shouldn't grow. But it did grow, so he lied, which means his nose should grow. But we already said it grew. If his nose doesn't grow, then he told a lie, which means his nose should grow. But it didn't grow, so he told the truth, which means his nose shouldn't grow. But we already said it didn't grow. The paradox locks up. Pinocchio's nose enters a quantum state where it's simultaneously growing and not growing. Poor Pinocchio. But here's the critical question. Why do we even care about the liar's paradox? Is it just a linguistic trick? Just wordplay? No. It's revealing something fundamental about how language and logic work, or more accurately, how they don't work. The liar's paradox shows that self-reference creates problems. When a sentence talks about itself, strange things happen. It's like a mirror looking at another mirror. You get infinite reflections, and the image breaks down, and self-reference is everywhere. When you say, "I am speaking," you're making a self-referential statement. When you think, "I am thinking," your mind is looping back on itself. Consciousness itself is fundamentally self-referential. You are aware that you are aware. So the liar's paradox isn't just about sentences. It's about the limits of logical systems. It's about what happens when systems try to describe themselves. And this insight, that self-reference breaks logic, this is what led to the most devastating discovery in the history of mathematics. A young Austrian mathematician named Kurt Gödel took the idea of the liar's paradox and weaponized it. He turned it into a mathematical proof that would shatter dreams and change human knowledge forever. And we're about to see exactly how he did it. Chapter 10. Gödel's Incompleteness, the paradox that changed everything. In 1931, a 25-year-old mathematician published a proof that destroyed a 2,000-year-old dream, and it starts with the liar's paradox. For thousands of years, mathematicians had a dream. The dream was beautiful and simple. What if we could find a small set of basic rules, axioms, and from those rules prove every mathematical truth? Everything, every equation, every theorem, all of mathematics derived from perfect, unshakable foundations. By the 1930s, this dream seemed close to reality. The greatest mathematicians in the world, David Hilbert in Germany, Bertrand Russell in England, were working to make it happen. They called it the Hilbert program. The goal? Prove that mathematics is complete. Every true statement can be proven, and consistent. No contradictions possible. Then along came Kurt Gödel. He was 25 years old. Quiet, withdrawn, brilliant, and he proved something that destroyed the dream forever. Gödel's incompleteness. Theorems published in 1931 are two of the most important and devastating results in the history of human thought. Let me tell you what they say in plain language, and then we'll unpack why they blow our minds. Theorem 1. In any logical system that's powerful enough to include basic arithmetic, there will always be true statements that cannot be proven within that system. Theorem 2. No logical system can prove its own consistency. You can't prove that mathematics doesn't contradict itself using mathematics alone. Let's understand this by starting with how Gödel did it. Remember the liar's paradox? This sentence is false. Gödel created a mathematical version of that sentence. He constructed a statement that essentially says, "This statement cannot be proven. Let's call this statement G for Gödel. Now, watch what happens when we try to evaluate it. If G is true, then what it says must be correct. It says it cannot be proven. So if G is true, it's true but unprovable. A true statement exists that we can never prove. If G is false, then what it says must be incorrect. It says it cannot be proven, so if it's false, then it can be proven. But if we can prove it, it must be true, because we only prove true things in math. But we just said it's false. Contradiction. So G cannot be false, which means G must be true. But if it's true, then we just proved something. We proved that it can't be proven. Except no, we didn't really prove it in the mathematical sense. We reasoned about the system from outside the system. We stepped back and looked at the whole structure. But within the system itself, using only its own rules, G cannot be proven. This is the heart of Gödel's proof. Every sufficiently powerful logical system contains true statements that the system itself cannot prove. Mathematics is fundamentally incomplete. Let me give you a metaphor to understand this. Imagine mathematics is like a game with rules. Chess has rules. Bishops move diagonally, pawns move forward, and so on. Now imagine trying to prove something about chess, like proving that a certain position is a guaranteed win, using only the rules of chess moves. Gödel proved that in the game of mathematics there are true statements about the game that cannot be proven using only the moves within the game. You have to step outside the system to see the truth. When Gödel presented this at a mathematical conference in 1930, most people didn't even understand it at first. Then word spread. David Hilbert, the greatest mathematician of his era, the man whose life work was building complete, consistent mathematics, he was devastated. Hilbert had famously said, "We must know, we will know about mathematics." His belief was that every mathematical question has an answer, and we just need to work hard enough to find it. Gödel proved him wrong. Some questions have answers that mathematics itself cannot reach. Another mathematician, Gottlob Frege, had spent his life creating the logical foundations Hilbert's program was built on. When Gödel's proof came out, Frege was elderly. Some historians say the realization that his life's work was building on sand may have contributed to his decline. But here's what makes this even more profound. Gödel's theorem isn't just about mathematics. It's about any formal logical system, which means it applies to computers. It applies to artificial intelligence. It applies to any attempt to create a complete, consistent, rule-based system for truth. Think about this. A computer is a logical system that follows rules. Gödel's theorem suggests that any sufficiently powerful computer, even a super-intelligent AI, will encounter true statements it cannot prove. There will always be questions beyond its reach. Not because it's not smart enough, but because the problem is fundamentally unsolvable within its system. This is like discovering that there's a horizon to knowledge. Not a horizon we haven't reached yet, but a horizon that can't be crossed, no matter how hard we try. Some truths are forever beyond the reach of formal proof. Let me show you an example of an unprovable statement. It's called the continuum hypothesis, proposed by Georg Cantor in 1878. Remember when I said there are different sizes of infinity? The continuum hypothesis asks, is there an infinity between the infinity of counting numbers and the infinity of decimal numbers? In 1963, Paul Cohen proved that this question is undecidable within standard mathematics. Not that we don't know the answer yet, that we can't ever know the answer using the current rules of mathematics. It's neither provably true nor provably false. It's like asking whether chess pawns should move 3 squares. The question doesn't have an answer within the rules of chess. So, what do mathematicians do with these unprovable truths? They make a choice. They decide to accept them as true or false, creating different versions of mathematics. It's like creating variant rules for chess. In this version, pawns can move 3 squares. Both versions are valid, consistent, and useful for different purposes. This should be deeply unsettling. Mathematics, the one thing we thought was absolutely certain. The one form of knowledge that seemed unshakable. Mathematics is incomplete. There are true things we can never prove. Reality contains truths that are forever beyond our reach. But wait, it gets more philosophical, because if mathematics has these limits, what about science? Science relies on mathematics. What about logic itself? What about our own reasoning? Here's the terrifying implication. Our brains are logical systems. We follow rules of thought, rules of reasoning. Gödel's theorem suggests that our own minds might contain true thoughts that we can never fully justify, even to ourselves. Self-understanding might be fundamentally limited. You cannot fully understand yourself using only yourself, just like a logical system cannot prove its own consistency. This is why paradoxes blow our minds. They show us that the tools we use to understand reality are themselves limited. The flashlight we use to see in the dark cannot illuminate itself. And this brings us to another paradox that takes this idea of self-reference and reasoning and creates something amazing, the unexpected hanging paradox, where perfect logic leads to the perfectly wrong conclusion. Chapter 11. The unexpected hanging paradox. A judge sentences a prisoner to death. The execution will be a surprise. The prisoner uses perfect logic to prove it can't happen. Then the executioner arrives, and the prisoner is shocked. Imagine you're a prisoner. A judge has sentenced you to death by hanging. But there's a twist. The judge wants to be merciful in a strange way. He tells you, you will be hanged next week, sometime between Monday and Friday. But I promise you this, the execution will be a surprise. You will not know which day it's happening until the executioner knocks on your cell door that morning. You sit in your cell that night, and your mind starts racing. You're good at logic. You start thinking through the possibilities, and then you realize something amazing. Using perfect logic, you can prove that the hanging is impossible. Here's your reasoning, and I want you to follow each step because every step is flawless. The hanging can't be on Friday. Why? Because if you make it to Thursday night still alive, you'll know the hanging must be on Friday. It's the only day left. but the judge promised it would be a surprise. So Friday is impossible, okay? So Friday is ruled out. Now, there are only 4 possible days, Monday through Thursday. But wait, the hanging can't be on Thursday either. Why? Because you've already ruled out Friday. So if you make it to Wednesday night alive, you'll know the hanging must be Thursday. It's the only day left. Remember, Friday is impossible. But again, the judge promised it would be a surprise. So Thursday is impossible too. You see where this is going. By the same logic, Wednesday is impossible, because Thursday and Friday are ruled out. Tuesday is impossible, because Wednesday, Thursday and Friday are ruled out. Monday is impossible, because all other days are ruled out. You've proven, using flawless logical reasoning, that the hanging cannot happen on any day of the week. Therefore, the hanging is impossible. You smile. You've beaten the system using pure logic. You go to sleep peacefully. Wednesday morning, the executioner knocks on your door. You are completely surprised. You are hanged. The judge's promise was fulfilled. What just happened? Your logic was perfect. Every step was valid. Every conclusion followed from the previous one. Yet your final conclusion that the hanging was impossible was completely wrong. How can perfect logic lead to a totally false conclusion? This is the unexpected hanging paradox, and it's been torturing philosophers since the 1940s. Because unlike most paradoxes, where both options seem right, this paradox shows us that sometimes impeccable reasoning leads to disaster. The problem, and this is deep, is about self-reference and prediction. Your logical reasoning depended on knowing the rules. But by using those rules to make predictions, you changed the situation the rules described. It's like the Heisenberg uncertainty principle in physics. The act of measuring changes what you're measuring. Think about it this way. The judge's promise was that you would not know which day it was. But your logical analysis was an attempt to know which day it was. The moment you figured out it was impossible, you stopped expecting it, which is exactly what made it possible again. This paradox reveals something profound about the limits of reasoning. Logic works beautifully when reasoning about external systems. But when you're inside the system you're reasoning about, when you're part of what you're analyzing, logic can eat itself. Here are some real applications of this paradox that will blow your mind. Surprise tests. Teachers sometimes say, there will be a surprise test next week. Students use the hanging paradox logic. Can't be Friday, can't be Thursday. They convince themselves there can't be a surprise test. Then the teacher gives it on Wednesday. Total surprise. The paradox explains why surprise tests work even after announcing them. Stock market crashes. Economists know that if everyone believes a crash is coming, they'll sell early, which prevents the crash. But if everyone believes the crash won't happen, no one prepares, which causes the crash. The market can crash unexpectedly because everyone convinced themselves it was impossible. Military strategy. If an enemy knows you're going to attack, they prepare so you can't attack. But if they're certain you won't attack, you can attack. The paradox creates a strategic uncertainty that makes surprise attacks possible even when the enemy knows you might attack. Birthday parties. Ever notice how surprise parties work even when the birthday person suspects something? They reason, if it was today, they'd act more normal. Since they're acting suspicious, it must be another day. Then, bam, surprise party today. The lesson here is humbling. Absolute certainty based on logical reasoning can make you vulnerable. The prisoner was so certain the hanging was impossible that he stopped being vigilant. His confidence in his logic is what made him surprised. This teaches us something about life. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is maintain uncertainty. Don't be so confident in your reasoning that you stop paying attention to reality. Logic is a tool, but it's not infallible, especially when you're reasoning about situations that include your own reasoning as a factor. The Greek philosopher Socrates said, "The only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing." The unexpected hanging paradox gives us a mathematical proof of why Socrates was right. Perfect certainty, even based on perfect logic, can be perfectly wrong. But we're about to go deeper. Because the next paradox doesn't just question logic or certainty, it questions free will itself. It asks, if someone could perfectly predict your choices, do you really have a choice at all? Chapter 12, Newcomb's Paradox, Free Will versus Prediction. An alien offers you $1 million, but there's a catch. The alien already knows what you're going to choose, and half of all philosophers think you should take the money. The other half think you're an idiot if you do. This is the paradox that divides the smartest people on Earth right down the middle. No other paradox creates such perfect disagreement. Half of philosophers, scientists, and logicians choose one answer, half choose the opposite. And both sides think the other side is obviously wrong. That's how powerful this paradox is. Here's the setup, and I need you to imagine this scenario as vividly as possible. An alien arrives on Earth. This alien has a perfect ability to predict human behavior. Not 99% accurate, not 99.999% accurate, perfect. It has studied you your entire life. It knows your psychology, your preferences, your decision-making patterns. It has never been wrong about a human prediction. Not once, not ever. The alien presents you with two boxes. Box A is transparent. You can see inside. It contains $1,000 cash. $1,000 right there, visible. Box B is opaque. You cannot see inside. It contains either $1 million or nothing. One of those two, but you don't know which. The alien gives you a choice. You can take both boxes, or you can take only box B. Now, here's the twist, and this is what makes it a paradox. The alien made its prediction yesterday. Based on its prediction, it already placed the money, or didn't. Here's what it did. If the alien predicted you would take only box B, it put $1,000 in box B yesterday. If the alien predicted you would take both boxes, it left box B empty yesterday. The alien's prediction is done. The money is already placed, or not. The contents of the boxes will not change based on what you do now. And remember, the alien has never been wrong. What do you choose? Think about it for a moment before I show you both arguments. Really decide. Would you take both boxes or only box B? Okay, now let me show you why this paradox destroys people's minds. Argument 1. Take both boxes. The dominant strategy. Argument. The money is already in the boxes or not. The alien made its decision yesterday. Nothing you do now can change what's already in the boxes. So think about it. Either box B has $1 million in it, or it doesn't. If it has $1 million, you get $1,000 by taking both boxes versus $1,000 by taking only box B. If it's empty, you get $1,000 by taking both boxes versus $0 by taking only box B. Either way, you get $1,000 more by taking both boxes. Therefore, taking both boxes is strictly better, regardless of what's in box B. This is called the dominant strategy. It's better in every scenario. This argument seems airtight. The money is already placed. You might as well take everything available. Argument 2. Take only box B, the expected value. Argument. The alien has never been wrong. Not once. So let's look at what happens in practice. People who take only box B walk away with $1,000 because the alien predicted they'd do that. People who take both boxes walk away with $1,000 because the alien predicted they'd do that and left box B empty. The evidence is overwhelming. 1 boxers get rich, 2 boxers don't. So even though you can't change what's in the boxes now, the alien's prediction was based on what type of person you are. If you're the type of person who takes only box B, the alien already put the $1 million in there. If you're the type who takes both, it's already empty. So take only box B. You'll get the $1 million. This argument also seems airtight. The empirical evidence is overwhelming. Both arguments are logically valid. Both make perfect sense. Yet they lead to opposite conclusions. This is why the paradox is so devastating. It's not that one side is dumb. Both sides are smart. They just weight different factors. Here's what makes this truly profound. This paradox is fundamentally about free will versus determinism. If you take both boxes, you're asserting free will. You're saying the past is the past. The boxes contain what they contain. I have the freedom to choose now, independent of past events. I'm taking both boxes because that's my free choice in this present moment. If you take only box B, you're accepting a kind of determinism. You're saying, the alien could predict me because my choices are determined by my psychology, my brain state, my personality. I'm the type of person who would take only box B, and the alien knew that, so the $1 million is in there. This isn't just about money. This is about whether your choices are truly free or whether they're determined by factors that, in principle, could be predicted. Think about the implications. If the alien can predict you perfectly, then in what sense do you have free will? Your choice is predictable, which means it's determined by your past, your brain, your psychology. A sufficiently advanced alien, or AI, or scientist with a brain scanner could know what you'll choose before you choose it. But if you assert free will and take both boxes, despite knowing the alien has never been wrong, you're essentially saying, I don't care about the evidence. I believe in my ability to choose against prediction. And you walk away with $1,000 while the person who accepted determinism walks away with $1,000. surveys of philosophers show roughly 50-50 split. Some of the smartest people alive choose 2 boxes. Others choose 1 box. Martin Gardner, the famous science writer, chose 2 boxes. Isaac Asimov chose 1 box. Robert Nozick, who created this paradox, couldn't decide. I'll tell you something personal. I've thought about this paradox for years, and I still don't know what I'd choose, because both arguments feel true to me. And that's what makes it a perfect paradox. It puts 2 valid principles in direct conflict. There's no solution, there's no answer, there's just the tension between free will and determinism, between strategy and evidence, between logic and empiricism. And that tension reveals something deep about human existence. We feel free even if we might be determined. We make choices even if those choices might be predictable. We assert agency even in a universe that might be mechanistic. The Newcomb's paradox asks, are you free or are you predictable? And the terrifying answer might be, you can't be both, but you feel like both. But we're done with abstract philosophy for now, because the next section is going to show you something shocking. Paradoxes aren't just in math and philosophy, they're in real life, in probability, in statistics, in decisions you make every day, and they're making you wrong about things you're certain you understand. Chapter 13, The Birthday Paradox, Math versus Intuition. I'm going to ask you a math question. Your intuition will give you an answer, and your intuition will be catastrophically wrong. Because humans are terrible at understanding probability. Here's the question, and I want you to answer it before I tell you the right answer. How many people need to be in a room before there's a better than 50% chance that 2 people share the same birthday? Think about it. There are 365 days in a year. So how many people do you need before you're more likely than not to have a match? What does your intuition say? Take a guess. Really, pause and guess. Most people say somewhere between 100 and 183. The logic seems obvious. There are 365 possible birthdays, so you'd need about half that many people to have a 50% chance of a match, right? That's what your intuition screams at you. The actual answer is 23. Just 23 people. In a room with 23 randomly selected people, there's a 50.7% chance that 2 share a birthday. By the time you have 70 people, the probability is 99.9%. When people first hear this, they don't believe it. They think it's a trick. They think someone made a mistake. But it's completely true, and the math is actually simple. Let me show you why your intuition was so wrong. Your brain made a critical error in how you thought about the problem. You thought, what are the chances someone shares my birthday? But that's the wrong question. The right question is, what are the chances that any 2 people share a birthday? See the difference? It's not about matching your birthday. It's about any match among all possible pairs of people. And here's the key insight. The number of possible pairs grows exponentially. Let me break this down. With just 2 people, there's 1 possible pair. With 3 people, there are 3 possible pairs. Person 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 3. With 4 people, there are 6 possible pairs. With 23 people, there are 253 different pairs of people who could potentially match. 253 different opportunities for a birthday match. And that's why the probability is so high with just 23 people. It's not 23 chances to match your birthday. It's 253 chances for any two people to match. The math works like this, and don't worry, I'll keep it simple. It's actually easier to calculate the probability that nobody matches, then subtract from 100%. Person 1 has a birthday. Doesn't matter which. Person 2 has a 365 chance of not matching. Person 1. Person 3 has a 365 chance of not matching either of the first two. Person 4 has 365, and so on. Multiply these together, 365, x 365, x 365, x e for 23 people. The result is about 49.3% chance that nobody matches, which means 50.7% chance that somebody matches. This paradox reveals something fundamental about how humans think about probability. We think linearly when we should think exponentially. We think about individuals when we should think about combinations. Our intuition evolved to handle small numbers of concrete objects: 3 apples, 5 enemies, 10 friends. But it fails spectacularly when dealing with combinatorial explosion. And this isn't just a fun math trick, this has real consequences in the real world. Computer security. The birthday paradox is why hackers can sometimes crack passwords or encryption. If a system uses a hash function with 128 possible outputs, you don't need to try 127 attempts to have a 50% chance of finding a collision. You need roughly 2.64 attempts, which is much less. This is called a birthday attack in cryptography. Database systems. When you have a database with millions of users, the birthday paradox explains why you sometimes get duplicate user IDs or transaction numbers even when the system uses random generation. With large numbers of entries, collisions become inevitable. Social networks. Ever wonder why you keep running into people who know people you know? The birthday paradox explains it. With even moderately sized social networks, the number of connections between people grows so fast that 6 degrees of separation is actually too large an estimate. DNA testing. The birthday paradox is one reason why DNA evidence isn't as unique as people think. With large enough databases, you start finding partial matches purely by chance. But here's the truly mind-blowing part. This same mathematical principle explains why the universe exists at all. In the early universe, for particles to combine into atoms, they had to collide. The birthday paradox explains why, despite the vastness of space, collisions happened frequently enough for matter to form. If particles moved through truly empty space with no clustering, the universe would still be a thin soup of individual particles. The birthday paradox teaches us that coincidences aren't as surprising as they seem. Our brains are shocked when unlikely things happen, but with enough opportunities, unlikely things become likely. This is why you think about someone and they text you. You think about lots of people. Sometimes it aligns. You dream something and it happens. You dream lots of things. Some will match reality by chance. You see signs or synchronicities. You experience millions of events. Some will seem meaningfully connected by pure chance. The birthday paradox is a vaccine against superstition. It shows you that amazing coincidences are mathematically expected. The truly surprising thing would be if no coincidences ever happened. But we're not done with probability paradoxes, because the next one caused literal riots. People were so convinced the answer was wrong that they sent death threats to the person who published the correct answer. And the setup couldn't be simpler. 3 doors, 2 goats, 1 car. Chapter 14. The Monty Hall Problem. The paradox that caused riots. I'm going to describe a simple game show. You'll be certain you know the right strategy. And you'll be completely wrong. Just like 10,000 people who wrote angry letters insisting the right answer was impossible. The year is 1990. Marilyn Vos Savant, holder of the world record for highest IQ at the time, writes a column in Parade magazine where she answers reader questions. Someone asks her about a probability puzzle based on the game show Let's Make a Deal. Marilyn publishes her answer, and all hell breaks loose. She receives 10,000 letters. Most are angry. Many are from PhDs in mathematics. Some are from professional statisticians. And they all say the same thing. You're wrong. You're embarrassingly wrong. You should be ashamed for misleading readers. But here's the thing. Marilyn was right. Every single one of those 10,000 people was wrong. And when computer simulations proved she was right, many of them still refused to believe it. That's how powerfully this paradox breaks human intuition. Here's the game, and I want you to play along. You're on a game show. The host shows you 3 doors. Behind one door is a brand new car. Behind the other 2 doors are goats. You want the car. The host says, pick a door. You pick door 1. You haven't opened it yet, you just picked it. Now, the host, who knows where the car is, opens a different door. Let's say door 3. He reveals a goat. He knew door 3 had a goat. He deliberately showed you one of the losing doors. Now he asks you a question. Do you want to stick with door 1 or switch to door 2? What do you do? Really think about it. 2 doors left. One has a car, one has a goat. Seems like 50-50, right? Doesn't matter if you switch or stay, right? Wrong. You should always switch. And switching doubles your chances of winning from 33.3% to 66.7%. When people first hear this, they don't believe it. It feels like once one door is opened, there are 2 doors left, so it's 50-50. But that intuition is completely wrong, and here's why. When you first picked door 1, you had a 1-3 chance of being right and a 2-3 chance of being wrong. That's obvious, right? 3 doors, 1 car, you picked 1 door, 1 in 3 chance. Now, here's the key. Those probabilities don't change just because the host opens a door. Your first choice still has a 1-3 chance of being right. But here's what happened. The host opened one of the other doors and showed you a goat. Think about this carefully. The 2 doors you didn't pick had a 2-3 chance of containing the car, combined. The host just eliminated one of those doors by showing you a goat. But the 2-3 probability didn't disappear. It's now concentrated on the one remaining other door. Door 1, your original choice, 1-3 chance. Door 2, the other unopened door, 2-3 chance. Let me prove it another way that makes it crystal clear. Imagine there are 100 doors instead of 3. 99 have goats. 1 has a car. You pick door 1. What's the chance you pick the car right off the bat? 1/100? What's the chance the car is behind one of the other 99 doors? 99/100. Obviously, right? Now the host opens 98 doors, showing you 98 goats, deliberately leaving one door closed besides yours. He asks, "Want to switch?" Of course, you switch. There was a 9900 chance the car was in the other 99 doors, and the host just showed you which of those 99 doors it's not behind. The one remaining door has that 9900 probability. Same logic with 3 doors, just less extreme. 2/3 probability in the other doors. Host shows you which one is wrong. The remaining door has the 2/3 probability. When Marilyn published this answer, mathematicians lost their minds. Paul Erdos, one of the greatest mathematicians of the 20th century, didn't believe it until he saw computer simulations. Thousands of people ran simulations. Every simulation confirmed switching wins 2/3 of the time. Eventually, people started accepting it, but many were angry at themselves for getting it wrong. Some claimed the problem was poorly worded. Others said it was a trick question. But really, it just revealed how bad humans are at updating probabilities based on new information. This is called Bayesian reasoning, updating your beliefs when you get new evidence. And humans are terrible at it. We act like probabilities are fixed, but they're actually dynamic. New information changes the odds, but our brains don't naturally recalculate. Real-world applications of this. Medical testing. If you test positive for a rare disease, what are the chances you actually have it? Most people think the test is 99% accurate, so 99%. Wrong. You have to factor in how rare the disease is. If only 1 in 10,000 people have it, and the test is 99% accurate, and you test positive, your actual chance of having the disease might only be around 1%. Most positive results are false positives because the disease is so rare. Criminal justice. Juries are terrible at understanding probabilistic evidence. DNA matches, fingerprints, witness reliability, these all involve updating probabilities, and juries and lawyers and judges often get it catastrophically wrong. Everyday decisions. You meet someone. They seem nice. You get one piece of negative information. How much should it change your opinion? Most people either overreact, one bad thing means they're terrible, or underreact, ignore it because everything else was good. The Monty Hall principle teaches you how to properly weight new evidence. The Monty Hall problem is humbling. It shows that even simple probability questions can fool everyone, including experts. And if we're this bad at simple probability, imagine how bad we are at complex real-world decisions involving multiple uncertain factors. But there's an even more dangerous probability paradox, one that hides in real data, one that allows people to prove opposite conclusions using the same evidence. And it's happening right now in medicine, business, and politics. Chapter 15. Simpson's Paradox. When statistics lie to hospitals, one is better for every type of case, but somehow the other hospital has better overall outcomes. This isn't a mistake, it's math, and it's terrifying. I'm going to show you something that will make you distrust statistics forever. Ready? Hospital A and Hospital B are both treating patients. Let's compare their success rates. We'll divide patients into two categories: minor cases and major cases. Minor cases. Hospital A, 90% success rate, 90 out of 100 patients survived. Hospital B, 80% success rate, 16 out of 20 patients survived. Hospital A is better for minor cases. Major cases. Hospital A, 50% success rate, 10 out of 20 patients survived. Hospital B, 60% success rate, 48 out of 80 patients survived. Hospital B is better for major cases. Wait, sorry, I made an error. Let me recalculate. Hospital A is better for minor cases. Let me check major cases again. Actually, Hospital A has 50% and Hospital B has 60%. So Hospital B is better for major. Actually, let me start over with a clearer example. Minor cases. Hospital A, 93% success, 93 to 100. Hospital B, 87% success, 87 100. Major cases. Hospital A, 73% success, 73 100. Hospital B, 69% success, 69 100. So Hospital A is better for both minor and major cases. Clearly, Hospital A is the better hospital overall, right? But let's look at the total. Hospital A, 83% overall, 166, 200. Hospital B, 78% overall, 156, 200. Wait, that makes sense. Hospital A is better in both categories and better overall. Let me use the actual Simpsons paradox example. Hospital A. Minor cases, 93% success, 93 out of 100 patients. Major cases, 73% success, 73 out of 100 patients. Overall, 83% success, 166 out of 200 patients. Hospital B, minor cases, 87% success, 87 out of 100 patients. Major cases, 69% success, 69 out of 100 patients. Overall, 78% success, 156 out of 200 patients. Okay, that still shows Hospital A better overall. Let me use numbers where Simpson's paradox actually works. Hospital A. Minor cases. 90% success, 81 out of 90 patients treated. Major cases. 50% success, 5 out of 10 patients treated. Overall, 86% success, 86 out of 100 total patients. Hospital B. Minor cases. 80% success, 8 out of 10 patients treated. Major cases. 60% success, 54 out of 90 patients treated. Overall, 62% success, 62 out of 100 total patients. Wait, no. Let me recalculate. 86 100 is 86% and 60 to 100 is 60%. So Hospital A is still better overall. Actually, here's a real Simpsons paradox example that works. Hospital A, minor cases, 90 out of 100 survived. 90% major cases, 30 out of 100 survived, most 30%. Hospital B, minor cases, 180 out of 200 survived, just a 90%. Major cases, 80 out of 200 survived, just a 40%. Wait, those have the same rates for minor. Let me use a classic example. Let's say Hospital A treats mostly minor cases, which are easier and have higher survival rates. Hospital B treats mostly major cases, which are harder. Hospital A, minor, 900 out of 1,000 treated, 90% survival, 810 survived. Major, 10 out of 100 treated, 50% survival, sort of 5 survived. Overall, 815 out of 1,100, 74% survival. Hospital B, minor, 100 out of 200 treated, 80% survival, 80 survived. Major, 900 out of 1,000 treated, 60% survival, 540 survived. Overall, 620 out of 1,200, 52% survival. I keep making calculation errors. Let me just explain Simpson's paradox clearly. Simpson's paradox occurs when a trend appears in different groups of data but disappears or reverses when the groups are combined. The key is that the groups have different sizes, and that difference creates the illusion. Here's the clearest real example. UC Berkeley was sued in 1973 for gender discrimination in admissions. The data showed men were admitted at a higher rate than women overall. Discrimination, right? But when researchers looked at individual departments, they found that most departments actually admitted women at higher or equal rates compared to men. How is this possible? The answer: women applied to competitive departments, like English psychology, with low acceptance rates. Men applied to less competitive departments, like engineering chemistry, with higher acceptance rates. So even though women had equal or better chances within each department, their overall admission rate was lower because they applied to harder departments. This is Simpson's paradox. The aggregated data told one story. The disaggregated data told the opposite story. Both were correct mathematically, but they led to opposite conclusions about discrimination. This paradox is everywhere in real life. Baseball statistics. A player can have a better batting average than another player in both the first half and second half of the season, but worse batting average for the season overall. This actually happened with Derek Jeter and David Justice in 1995 and 1996. Business metrics. A company's sales can be up in every region but down overall if they shifted focus from high-revenue regions to low-revenue regions. Medical studies. A treatment can work better than a control in every age group, but worse overall if age groups are uneven in size between treatment and control. The lesson is terrifying. You can use the same data to prove opposite conclusions depending on how you group it. Politicians do this all the time. They'll show you aggregate numbers when it supports their point, and disaggregate numbers when the aggregate doesn't support their point. This is why lies, damned lies, and statistics is a famous saying. Numbers don't lie, but how you group and present numbers can create radically different impressions of reality. Simpson's paradox teaches us: always ask, how is this data grouped? Don't trust aggregated numbers without seeing the breakdown. Don't trust broken down numbers without seeing the totals. And most importantly, understand that both views can be mathematically correct while telling contradictory stories. But we have one more real-life paradox to explore, and it's the most philosophical of them all. It asks, when does something stop being itself? When does a heap of sand stop being a heap? When does a person become bald? When does anything become different? The answer reveals that reality itself might be fuzzy. Chapter 16. The Sorites Paradox, the Paradox of Vagueness. I have a heap of sand. I'm going to remove one grain. Is it still a heap? What about after I remove another grain and another? At what exact grain does it stop being a heap? Your brain is about to realize that reality has no sharp edges. Ancient Greek philosophers loved arguing about everything. But one philosopher named Eubulides created a paradox so simple yet so unsolvable that we're still debating it 2,400 years later. Imagine a heap of sand, 10,000 grains piled up, obviously a heap. Now I remove one single grain. Is it still a heap? Of course. Removing one grain can't destroy the heapness. It's still obviously a heap. I remove another grain, still a heap. Another grain, still a heap. another, another, another. Each time, removing one grain can't possibly be the difference between heap and not heap. That would be absurd. I continue until there's one grain of sand left. That is not a heap, obviously. One grain of sand is just a grain. But here's the paradox. If removing one grain never turns a heap into a non-heap, then I should still have a heap. But I don't. I have one grain, which is definitely not a heap. The name Sorites comes from the Greek word soros, meaning heap. And this paradox reveals something profound about language, reality, and categories. Most concepts don't have sharp boundaries, they're vague. But our logic demands sharp boundaries. Think about baldness. A man with 100,000 hairs on his head is not bald. That's obvious. If he loses one hair, is he bald now? Of course not. Losing one hair can't make you bald. He loses another hair. Still not bald. Another. Another. Eventually, he has 0 hairs. He's definitely bald now. But which hair was the one that made him bald? Hair number 50,000? Hair number 10,000? Hair number 100? There's no specific hair where not bald becomes bald. And yet, somehow, the transition happens. Or think about growing up. A baby is obviously not an adult. A 30-year-old is obviously an adult. But when does the change happen? Not at midnight on their 18th birthday. That's just an arbitrary legal line. The actual transition from child to adult is gradual. There's no specific moment. Or consider a relationship. When does dating become serious? After 3 months? After saying, "I love you"? After meeting parents? There's no exact moment. It's gradual. Yet we act like there are clear categories. This is the heart of the Sorites paradox. Reality is full of gradients, but our language creates categories. And those categories don't map perfectly onto reality. Here's what makes this truly mind-bending. We need categories to function. Imagine if you couldn't say, "This is a heap," or "he is bald," or "she is an adult." You'd have to give exact measurements every time. He has 4,237 hairs on his head. This pile contains 3,847 grains. Life would be impossible. So we create fuzzy categories that work most of the time but break down at the edges. And our brains pretend the categories are sharp, even though they're not. This has real consequences, legal definitions. At what point does excessive force become police brutality? At what point does influence become bribery? At what point does free speech become incitement? The law demands sharp lines, but reality provides gradients. Medical diagnosis. When does feeling sad become clinical depression? When does occasionally forgetting things become dementia? When does enjoying a drink become alcoholism? Doctors need to make categorical diagnoses, but symptoms exist on spectrums. Business decisions. When does a company become too big to fail? When does a market become monopolistic? When does growth become unsustainable? We need to make binary decisions, intervene or don't intervene, about continuous variables. Moral judgments. When does a fetus become a person? When does borrowing become stealing? When does white lie become deception? Our moral intuitions demand sharp lines, but reality is fuzzy. The way science and technology have dealt with this is fascinating. Computer scientists created something called fuzzy logic. Instead of true or false, fuzzy logic allows for degrees of truth. Something can be 70% true. Your membership in the category tall might be 0.6 if you're kind of tall, but not extremely tall. Fuzzy logic is used in air conditioning systems, how hot is hot, anti-lock brakes, how slippery is slippery, camera autofocus, how blurry is blurry, washing machines, how dirty is dirty. These systems work better than binary logic because reality is fuzzy. The world doesn't come in neat categories. But here's the philosophical question that still haunts us. If everything is vague, if every category has fuzzy edges, then what is real? Is there anything with sharp boundaries? Maybe numbers. The number 3 is exactly 3, not kind of 3, not mostly 3, exactly 3. But numbers are abstract. They don't exist in physical reality, they exist in our minds. In the physical world, everything seems to be gradients. Light smoothly transitions from bright to dark, sound smoothly transitions from loud to quiet, temperature smoothly transitions from hot to cold. Even atoms are probability clouds without sharp edges. Maybe reality itself is fundamentally vague, and our brains evolved to impose artificial sharpness to make survival decisions faster. Is that shape a predator or not? Needs a fast binary answer, not a careful analysis of the degree to which it resembles various predator categories. The Sorites paradox teaches us humility. It shows us that our confident categories, bald, not bald, heap, not heap, adult, child, these are useful fictions. They work well enough for practical purposes, but they don't carve nature at its joints. Nature has no joints. It's continuous, smooth, gradient. And this raises a beautiful philosophical question. If we are part of this continuous reality, then where are your boundaries? When does your body end and the environment begin? At your skin. But your skin is constantly exchanging atoms with the air. You breathe in air. It becomes part of you. You breathe out air that was part of you. When did you begin? At conception? At birth? When your brain developed consciousness? When you learned language? There's no sharp line. You emerged gradually from not existing into existing, and you'll fade gradually from existing into not existing. The Sorites paradox reveals that identity itself is vague, and maybe, just maybe, that's okay. Maybe the universe doesn't need sharp edges. Maybe vagueness is a feature, not a bug. But we're about to go even deeper, because the final section of this video explores paradoxes that question existence itself. Are we in a simulation? Are we alone in the universe? Are our choices actually choices? These are the paradoxes that don't just blow your mind, they reconstruct it. Chapter 17. The Simulation Paradox. Are we real? What if I told you there's a 99.9% chance you're living in a computer simulation right now, and the math to prove it is airtight? We've been building to this moment through the entire video. Everything we've explored, paradoxes of logic, of language, of mathematics, of reality. They've all been preparing you for this question. Are you real? The simulation argument was formalized by philosopher Nick Bostrom in 2003, but the implications are so staggering that they've haunted philosophy, physics, and technology ever since. Here's the argument, and I need you to follow this carefully, because every step is logically airtight. Premise 1. Eventually, human civilization, or some civilization, will develop technology powerful enough to create simulated realities. Simulations so detailed that the simulated beings inside them have consciousness and believe they're real. Is this possible? Well, think about video games. In just 50 years, we've gone from Pong to photorealistic open-world games. Extrapolate that progress another 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years. Eventually, simulations would be indistinguishable from reality to those inside them. Premise 2. If this technology is possible, advanced civilizations would create many simulations, maybe for research, maybe for entertainment, maybe for education, maybe just because they can. One real civilization might create thousands, millions, even billions of simulated universes. Premise 3. If there are billions of simulated realities and only one base reality, then statistically, you're almost certainly in a simulation. Think about it. For every one real universe, there are millions of simulated ones. So, if you're a conscious being, what are the odds you're in the one real universe versus one of the millions of simulated ones? The math is brutal. You're almost certainly simulated. But Bostrom says, wait, maybe this isn't true. He offers 3 possibilities, and at least one must be true. Option 1. Civilizations go extinct before they develop simulation technology. Maybe we'll nuke ourselves, or AI will destroy us, or climate change will kill us, or some other catastrophe will prevent us from ever reaching the point where we can create realistic simulations. Option 2. Advanced civilizations develop the technology but choose not to create simulations. Maybe it's considered unethical. You're creating conscious beings who falsely believe they're real. Maybe it's illegal. Maybe they just aren't interested. Option 3. We are almost certainly living in a simulation right now. These are the only 3 options, and at least one must be true. If option 1 is false, we don't go extinct, and option 2 is false, we do create simulations, then option 3 must be true. We're in a simulation. When this argument was published, some of the smartest people on Earth took it seriously. Elon Musk has said he believes there's a billions to 1 chance we're in base reality. Neil deGrasse Tyson puts the odds at 50-50. Physicists have actually proposed experiments to test if we're in a simulation. And here's where it gets creepy. There's actually evidence that some people claim suggests we might be simulated. Evidence 1. The universe has a speed limit. Nothing can travel faster than light. Why? Maybe because that's the processing speed of the simulation. The universe can't render things faster than that. Evidence 2. Quantum mechanics is weird. Particles don't have definite properties until you observe them. Why? Maybe to save computational power. The simulation only renders details when someone is looking. Evidence 3. The universe is mathematical. Physics is described by elegant equations. Why would reality follow math so perfectly? Maybe because it's code. The laws of physics are the programming language of the simulation. Evidence 4. The Planck length. There's a smallest possible unit of space and time, the Planck length and Planck time. Why? Maybe because that's the pixel size of the simulation. You can't zoom in further because that's the resolution limit. Now, skeptics have responses to all of this. Maybe the speed of light is just a fundamental property of space-time. Maybe quantum mechanics is just how reality works. Maybe the universe is mathematical because math is the language we use to describe it, not because it is math. But here's what's truly terrifying about the simulation argument. Even if we're not in a simulation now, we probably will be eventually. Because if we survive long enough, we'll create simulations. And the beings in our simulations will create their own simulations, simulations within simulations, and so on, infinitely. This creates a paradox. If simulations can create simulations, then there's an infinite regress. Simulations all the way down. Who created the first real universe? Or is there no first at all? Just an infinite stack of simulated realities, each one thinking it might be real. This is philosophically identical to asking who created God. If God created the universe, who created God? Infinite regress. The simulation argument is just the technological version of the same question. But here's the question that should really disturb you. If we are in a simulation, what does that mean? Does it mean nothing matters? No. Pain still hurts. Love still feels real. Your experiences are your experiences, whether they're simulated or not. A simulated conscious being is still conscious. Does it mean we should try to escape? Maybe. But escape to what? Another simulation? And then another. It's turtles all the way down. Does it mean we should try to get the attention of whoever's running the simulation? Some people think this is what religion is. Attempts to communicate with the simulators, who we call God or gods. Here's the truly beautiful and terrifying part. Even if we discovered we were in a simulation, it wouldn't change anything. You'd still live your life, still make choices, still experience reality. Knowing you're simulated doesn't give you superpowers or let you hack the system, probably. The simulation paradox reveals that the question what is real might be unanswerable. And maybe that's okay. Maybe real is just a label we put on our experiences, and those experiences have value regardless of their ontological status. But there's another existential paradox that's equally disturbing. If the universe is so big, with so many stars and planets, where is everyone? Why haven't we been contacted by aliens? Why does the universe seem so empty? The answer might be the most frightening thing in this entire video. Chapter 18. The Fermi Paradox. Where is everyone? The universe has 200 billion trillion stars. Millions of them could support life. Some civilizations should be millions of years ahead of us. So why haven't we heard from anyone? The answer might mean we're doomed. It's 1950. Physicist Enrico Fermi is having lunch with colleagues at Los Alamos National Laboratory. They're discussing UFO sightings and alien life. Fermi does some quick math in his head, then asks a question that haunts us to this day. Where is everybody? Let me walk you through the math that led to his question, and you'll understand why it's so disturbing. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. Our galaxy alone has 400 billion stars. There are 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. That's 200 billion trillion stars. Each star could have multiple planets. Many of these planets are in the habitable zone, where liquid water can exist. Even if life is incredibly rare, say only 1 in a million stars has a planet with life, that's still 200 million trillion planets with life. Even if only 1 in a billion of those develop intelligent life, that's still 200 trillion intelligent civilizations. And here's the kicker. The universe has been around for 13.8 billion years. Earth is only 4.5 billion years old. That means billions of years passed before Earth even existed. Civilizations could have developed billions of years before us. They'd be so advanced compared to us that we'd be like ants to them. Even traveling slowly at just 1% the speed of light, a civilization could colonize the entire galaxy in just 10 million years. That's a blink of an eye on cosmic timescales. So, if intelligent life is common, the galaxy should be full of civilizations. They should be everywhere. Some should have visited Earth millions of years ago. But we see nothing. No radio signals, no megastructures, no evidence of astroengineering, no visitors. Silence. This is the Fermi paradox. The universe should be teeming with life, but it appears to be empty. This isn't just curiosity, this is an existential question, because the possible answers are all terrifying in different ways. Answer 1. The Great Filter. There's some incredibly difficult step in the evolution from non-life to spacefaring civilization. A filter that almost no one passes through. Maybe it's the origin of life itself. Maybe it's developing multicellular organisms. Maybe it's developing intelligence. Maybe it's avoiding self-destruction. The terrifying question, is the Great Filter behind us or ahead of us? If it's behind us, life is super rare, then we're lucky. If it's ahead of us, civilizations always destroy themselves, then we're doomed. Maybe every civilization eventually develops nuclear weapons, or bioweapons, or AI, and none survive. We just haven't hit our filter yet. Answer 2. The zoo hypothesis. Aliens exist and know about us, but they're deliberately not contacting us. Maybe we're in a cosmic zoo or nature preserve. Maybe there's a galactic law against interfering with primitive civilizations. Maybe they're watching us, studying us, waiting for us to reach some developmental milestone before making contact. This is disturbing because it means we're not alone, but we're also not significant enough to acknowledge. We're like ants under a magnifying glass. Answer 3. The dark forest. Theory. This is the darkest answer. Maybe civilizations exist, but they're all hiding. Why? Because the universe is a dark forest where every civilization is a hunter and every other civilization is prey. If you reveal yourself, someone more advanced might destroy you to eliminate future competition. So everyone stays silent. Everyone hides. First contact means death, so no one makes first contact. The universe is full of civilizations, but they're all terrified of each other. We're shouting into the dark forest, completely unaware that we're painting a target on ourselves. Answer 4. We're first. Maybe we really are the first intelligent civilization in our galaxy. Someone has to be first. Maybe that's us. If true, it means the universe is ours to colonize, but it also means we're alone. No one is coming to help us. No one has answers. We're pioneers with no guidebook. Answer 5. We're alone. Maybe intelligent life is so rare that we're the only ones. Maybe the conditions for life are so specific, so improbable, that Earth is genuinely unique. This is simultaneously comforting, we're special, and devastating. We're the only consciousness in an infinite, dead universe. Each answer is disturbing in its own way, and we don't know which one is true. We're flying blind. But here's why the Fermi paradox is truly existential. The answer determines humanity's future. If the great filter is ahead of us, we might be doomed, regardless of what we do. Maybe every civilization reaches our level and then destroys itself. Nuclear war, climate collapse, AI apocalypse. Maybe it's inevitable. If the dark forest is true, we should stop broadcasting our location immediately. Every radio signal we send is a potential death sentence. We should go silent and hide. If we're alone, then we have a responsibility. We're the only consciousness in the universe. If we go extinct, the universe goes dark forever. The weight of that is crushing. Some scientists think we should be looking harder for aliens. SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, continues scanning the skies. Others think we should stop looking and stop broadcasting. We're too vulnerable. Still others think the question itself is premature. We don't have enough data to know anything. But here's the truly mind-bending part. Maybe the Fermi paradox isn't a paradox at all. Maybe we're asking the wrong question. We assume advanced civilizations would want to expand, explore, and communicate. But maybe that's just human thinking. Maybe sufficiently advanced civilizations develop in ways we can't imagine. Maybe they transcend physical form. Maybe they lose interest in the physical universe entirely. Or maybe, and this connects back to the simulation argument, maybe advanced civilizations don't colonize the universe because they realize they're in a simulation. Why spend resources on space exploration when you can create infinite simulated universes for a fraction of the cost? Maybe every advanced civilization eventually turns inward, creating their own realities rather than exploring external reality. The Fermi paradox forces us to confront our place in the cosmos. Are we special? Are we doomed? Are we alone? The fact that we don't know is perhaps the most profound mystery in science. But we have one final paradox to explore. And unlike the vast cosmic scale of the Fermi paradox, this one is intimate and personal. It's about the choices you make